Hey man, hello and welcome to Relaxed Mel. All right, so this week, mixing it up a little bit. From time to time, I come across someone who is just so interesting. I've got to let you share it. Now, I'm going to be we've got an interview coming up, and it's going to be with a man named Terry Tucker. Incredible guy, and just a harrowing story in some parts, but also ultimately a story that a tale and insight on finding your purpose and why that is so important for us as men to do. Why do we need to have a purpose? Why do we need to find ourselves and know what we need to do? And we're going to be talking about that this week on episode number 50 of The Relaxed Male. Hello and welcome to Relaxed Male, podcast that helps men change their relationship with themselves. I am your host, Brian, and I am a men's life and mindset coach who is here to help you understand that you don't have to suffer at your own expense. You can live your dream, and I encourage you to set, then pursue your goals. So join me as I change the mindset and attitudes of men so that they can be the leaders of their families and their destinies. All right, man. Hello and welcome to Relaxed Mel. All right, so like I said in the intro, we've got a special guest this week that I am just completely blown away by. He shot me an email, just seeing if I took guests, which right off the bat, just because you ask if I take guests, at least you have taken the time to do a little bit of search, listen to a couple of the episodes, and may not have seen that, I've had two other episodes where I interviewed Trip Lanier and Jake Warner from Big Brother Jake podcast, but at least he was not instantly going, "Hey dude, I've got a great person that you need to interview with. He sells male testosterone enhancement pills." And it's like, well, okay, we are about health, but we're more than just health. It's not just health pills that we're pushing. So yeah, there's this gentleman came up and had an interesting conversation. Even the first time we talked on the phone, I mean, he has got such an infectious laugh, and you'll get a chance to hear it through in the interview. He is just a true to life, honest to God, full amazing man, and I am going to be glad to share that with you. Now, as you know, this show is free. If you're first time listening to this, yeah, congratulations. This show cost you no money, but there is a fee to this. And that fee is if you find any type of value while you're listening to this, you go, "Oh, wow," or you get you to thinking about anything. If you get to thinking, if it stops to make you laugh, cry, think, moan, or groan, I got you. It's time for you to share that. Share this episode out with people that you know. Share it out with your friends, your family, your followers. If you are on, share it with Facebook and Instagram and any other social media account you have out there. Share it with folks. Let them know that we have this podcast out, and that we are looking for more men who are just like you. We want more of you with this community so that we can grow and become better, and we can help each other. So with that, just one more quick announcement. I still have plenty of openings available for the Brotherhood of Men, which is a men's group that I run. You can sign up for that over at relaxedmale.com/brotherhood and sign up, and you will find that a lot of the obstacles you have been facing are not quite as pressing, because our guys have solutions for you. We are able to help work you through the different problems. So with that, let's jump on into this interview, because it is an incredibly powerful one. All right. So here we go. Hey, man, hello and welcome. All right, so today I have an interesting change up. You know, I don't do a whole lot of interviews on this show, but every so often you get somebody who comes in, knocks on your door, and goes, "Dude, I'd like to be able to talk on your show." And I give everybody a chance to be able to talk, especially if they come off and sound like they start off being a good fit for the show. I usually will do it because, you know, sometimes you get people coming on going, "Hey, I've got a great testosterone pill that would be great for your men." It's like, that's not what this show is about. You're not going to do any good for my audience. So, but today I ended up getting a message from a gentleman named Terry Tucker, and this guy intrigued me right off the bat. I was like, "Hey, we got to talk to him." And I talked to him, and instantly this dude hit me with one of the most infectious and incredible and beautiful laughs I have ever heard come from a man before. And he has got such an incredible story. If you think you've got a hard life, there's always somebody out there who's got something just a little bit worse, just to kind of help put your life in. And his story just really sets that no matter what happens to you, there is always a reason to look on the positive side. There's always stuff that actually happens that, yeah, life is 50-50, 50% pain, 50% pleasure. And what we make of that pain side is what makes us. So guys, please welcome to the show, Terry Tucker. Terry, how you doing today?
I'm good, Brian. Thank you very much for having me. I'm looking forward to it.
So you are in Colorado, right?
Correct.
All right. And so you, with being in Colorado, what was first off, kind of let folks know, you said you you grew up in Chicago. So what brought you over to the glorious mountains of Colorado?
Well, that would probably take an entire podcast to trace the journey around the United States, but I'll try to do it real quickly. So from Chicago, I went to college in Charleston, South Carolina. So I've got the East Coast covered. I moved back to Ohio, where after I graduated from college from the Citadel in Charleston, South Carolina, I moved back to Ohio, where I had lived previously when I was younger. And I got a job with Wendy's International, the hamburger chain, in their corporate offices in the marketing department. I was the first person in my family to graduate from college. So I was kind of all set to make my mark on the world with my newly obtained business administration degree. And I look back on that now and I'm like, I didn't know anything, when I graduated from college. I knew absolutely nothing, and I was all set, like I said, to make my mark on the world. But unfortunately, I ended up living with my parents for the next 3.5 years while I helped my mother care for my father and my grandmother who was living with us. And they were both dying of different forms of cancer. So I met my wife while I was in Columbus, and we moved to Santa Barbara, California. So now I've got the West Coast covered as well.
The West Coast. There you go.
And from there, we moved back to Cincinnati, Ohio, and then to Houston, Texas, and then eventually to Denver here. And I am the trailing spouse. My wife is the primary breadwinner, so we go where her jobs take her. She's in the financial management sector of basically what she does for a living. So I go where she goes, and we've been married for 27 years. We have one daughter who is a graduate of the United States Air Force Academy and is a lieutenant in the Space Force, the newly created Space Force.
Oh, that's cool. Awesome. That is amazing.
Yeah, it's pretty neat. But, it's funny because conversations with her are very short because everything she does is top secret. So, how was work today? Well, I can't talk about it. Good talking to you. See you. Bye. So.
Can't talk about that. Can't talk about that. Oh, come on.
Can't talk about anything,
So you shot me a message because you actually ended up writing. You wrote a book, which is an amazing feat among itself. I think everybody has an author inside of them, but your story, like you said, you actually went to school at the Citadel. But what did you also do in the Citadel that was for a lot of people just kind of a wow feature?
So I went to the Citadel on a basketball scholarship, and which in and of itself is not that big of a deal, except for the fact that I had 3 knee surgeries when I was in high school. And the Citadel is still a Division I, NCAA Division I program. And when I was there, we got to play against some really good players. My senior year, we played against Michael Jordan in North Carolina on a Friday night, and then on Saturday night we played against Jim Valvano in North Carolina State on a Saturday night. And the funny thing about it is that year, which was 1982, which shows you how old I am, North Carolina and Michael Jordan won the national championship, and then the following year, 1983, North Carolina State and Jim Valvano won the national championship. So I was very fortunate to play against some really great competition. And it's funny because my brother, my youngest brother, is a basketball coach in high school, or a high school basketball coach in Chicago. And he actually coached Michael Jordan's 2 sons. And he tells a funny story. So one day I'm at practice, and it's getting toward the end of practice, and I'm teaching the players a particular play. And I look up, and none of them are paying attention to what I'm saying. So I turn around and look at the door, and Michael Jordan had come into the gym as a parent. He was there to pick up his sons after practice. And so my brother kind of turns to him and says, "Hey, Michael, you're a little bit of a distraction here. Would you mind stepping out?" And Michael Jordan was a super parent. He didn't try to, tell my brother what to do or anything like that. He said, "Sure, coach, no problem. I'll step out in the hall till practice is over." And later on, my brother thought, "Gee, I'm probably the only coach in the history of basketball that's ever kicked Michael Jordan out of practice."
Out of a basketball court. Oh, wow. Yeah. Yes, I got to get this.
Right.
Amazing. Wow. So now you have a very interesting look on life, because as I kind of hinted at, you've got apparently from what you said earlier, you've kind of got a lineage of your body rebelling against itself. You have actually come across a couple of different hardships due to, like I said, your body rebelling. You have beaten cancer, 2 times now? 3 times?
Yeah, unfortunately, that's probably going to be all that I'm going to beat it. So, yeah. In 2012, I was diagnosed with a rare form of melanoma that presented on the bottom of my foot. And this certainly has been the greatest challenge of my life. By the time that cancer was detected, it had metastasized to a lymph node in my groin. And because my form of cancer is so rare, there's only about 6,500 people that are diagnosed with this type of melanoma in the U.S. every year. It was recommended that I be treated at the world-renowned MD Anderson Cancer Center in Houston. So I want your audience to understand that what I'm going to describe to you is what I experienced during my cancer journey. I realize there are thousands and thousands of people out there who are suffering terribly with their diseases, whether they be mental or physical. And I make no claims to have the market cornered on suffering. But one thing I have learned through all my suffering is that suffering is one of life's greatest teachers. So at MD Anderson, I had 2 surgeries to remove the tumor and all the lymph nodes in my groin, and I had a skin graft to close the wound where the cancer had been cut out. And after I healed, I was put on a weekly injection of a drug called interferon to help keep the disease from coming back. Now, interferon for me was a horrible, nasty, debilitating drug. And I took those weekly injections of interferon for 4 years and 7 months before the medication became so toxic to my body that I ended up in the intensive care unit with a fever of 108 degrees, which
Oh, wow. Yeah, you're starting doing brain damage.
Yeah, usually isn't compatible with being alive at that point.
No.
but while I was on interferon, it gave me severe flu-like symptoms for 2 to 3 days after each injection. I lost 50 pounds during my therapy. As a matter of fact, I used to joke that I was so skinny that I was pretty sure I could go hang gliding on a Dorito. But other than that, I was constantly nauseous, fatigued, and chilled. My ability to taste food diminished, and my body continually ached. And this misery went on for over 1,660 days. But
nothing like having the flu for that long. Wow.
It is. I mean, if you can imagine, we've all had the flu. If you can imagine having the flu every week for almost 5 years, that's pretty much what I went through. And when I ended up in the intensive care unit with 108-degree fever, that was in 2017. I was taken off the drug. They pretty much said, this is too toxic to your body. You can't take this anymore. And of course, the disease came back in 17. In 2018, I had my left foot amputated because the disease had come back. In 2019, came back again, had 2 surgeries to remove it. And then earlier this year, I had an undiagnosed tumor in my ankle, which grew large enough to fracture my tibia. That led to the amputation of my left leg above the knee, of course, during the middle of a global pandemic. And I also found out that I have tumors in my lungs. And so I've been on chemotherapy to treat those. The chemotherapy has been successful in shrinking them, although not eliminating them. And then on Monday, I start a clinical trial of a drug that will hopefully rev up my immune system to fight the disease. It will do nothing to the cancer, but it will hopefully get my body in a position where I can actually fight the disease.
Right. Okay. So yeah, using it to at least to hold the enemy at bay.
Yeah, that's basically it. Although my oncologist is not very optimistic about my long-term future.
Yeah. So when you found out that that weird spot on the bottom of your foot was melanoma, what was the first thought that you actually had?
Well, I didn't really think much of it because at the time, I've had numerous jobs in my life. I was a police officer. I was on the SWAT team. I've done a lot of fun and cool and interesting things.
Wow. I mean, you keep adding stuff in here. Oh, I was this and I was this. Oh, and by the way, I was a SWAT. It's like, holy smokes, man.
I spent 3.5 years as an undercover narcotics investigator as well. So,
I bet you there's some stories there.
Yeah, there really are. Probably not many we could tell on the air here, but So I was a high school girls basketball coach at the time, and having a callus break open on the bottom of your foot right underneath my third toe, I really didn't give it much thought because I was on my feet, every day coaching and practice and games, but when it didn't heal, I went to a podiatrist friend of mine, and he did the normal things. He gave me some pads to put in my shoe to kind of cushion it and see if that worked. And eventually he said, I think you have a cyst in there. And so he cut it out and he showed it to me. And it was just a little sack of white fat. He's like, I've been practicing for 25 years, seen thousands of these, no big deal. Give you a couple stitches, you'll be good as new in 2 weeks. So he said, but you know what? I'll send it to pathology just to make sure. 2 weeks later, I get that call from him. And like I said, I had known him before, and he was having a difficult time talking. And the more he was struggling to tell me what happened, the more frightened I was becoming. And then eventually he told me, he said, as I said, I've been practicing for 25 years. I have never seen this form of cancer. You need to go to MD Anderson to be treated.
Wow. I've never had to be faced with that. I mean, my wife is a survivor of childhood leukemia, and so back in the late 70s, early 80s, I mean, back when that was still almost considered a death sentence. I mean, and her mother is one of those who was an early adopter of the Ronald McDonald House and things like that. That's the closest to Well, besides I've had my grandfather died of pancreatic cancer, and this dude was a big man. He was tall, and he was barrel chested and everything. And I never got to actually see him while he's in the hospital, but we heard how fast the cancer can ravage a body. And so there are those ones that are very very aggressive, and then there's those types of cancers that are not. So, but every time you hear someone say, "Yeah, there's cancer involved," some people really get a attitude of, "Well, okay, I've got this. I'm going to attack it," or they almost just go ahead and just give up. What angle what mindset at that once the initial shock of, dude, you've got one of the rarest cancers known to man growing on your foot. What was your mindset on that? Were you?
Yeah, I think I went through, I'm I like to think I'm tough, but you know what? I don't care how tough you are when you're faced with a terminal illness or a chronic illness or anything like that. I mean, I think one of the things I was like, well, this can't possibly be happening to me, because I'd done everything right in my life. I'd eaten well. I've always exercised. I had a physical every year and did whatever kind of testing my doctor said I needed to do. I'd never smoked, and never did drugs, anything like that. And I thought, how could this possibly, and even to this day, I still, when I meet somebody new, I'm on very, very little medication. I don't look like I have cancer. I don't have a leg, but other than that, people look at me and I'm like, yeah, I'm probably the healthiest sick person you're going to meet today. So, excuse me, I go that route, but, I think I look at my life. I had 3 knee surgeries in high school. I had to battle back from that. My second one, they took out 25 pieces of bone, and I was told I probably wouldn't play basketball again and might not walk normally again. So I was able to overcome that, go to college, play basketball. A lot of life is how you approach it. And I have, to this day, I have a little Post-it note on my desk that I see every day, and it has 3 sentences on it. And I think that kind of sums up my life and sort of how I'm attacking this disease. And the first one is, you need to control your mind or it will control you. The second one is, embrace your pain and suffering and use it to make you a stronger and more determined individual. And the third one is, as long as you don't quit, you can never be defeated. And I really kind of took, and I've been through a lot of pain. I've been through a lot of suffering, and people ask me, how do you deal with that? And what I've done, and what I've somehow figured out how to do, is to turn that inward, to turn that inside of me, to make me tougher, to say, you know what, I'm going to use that pain, and I'm not going to be like, oh, gee, woe is me, and I feel bad, and all that. I'm going to use that as fuel to make me a stronger and more determined individual. So I think a lot of life is how you look at it and how you approach it. And literally, I did another podcast where somebody asked me, well, what if somebody's listening and they are like, oh, well, you've got a college degree, you've got a master's degree, you've done all these things, I could never do that. And I'm like, well, yeah, you're right. If that's your attitude, you will never do that. But Precisely. If you approach it as, you know what? Yeah, my life may suck right now, but if you embrace that suck and use it to make you more determined, you can do anything that you want to do. So I can't stand people that, well, I could never have been a policeman. Well, yeah, you're right. And with that attitude, you never could. Why would you use that negativity? Why would you take that negativity and say, I could never do that? Well, you never will do anything if that's your attitude. But what if you say, I'm going to try this and see how it goes? That at least gives you an opportunity. You mentioned I wrote a book. I'm not a writer, but yet I wrote a book. There's an old saying that says some of our greatest real estate in terms of value are cemeteries, because they're areas rich in books never written, businesses never started, relationships never pursued. if you want to do something, you've got to believe that you can do it. You may not do it, but it's kind of, I think it was Einstein or Graham Bell or somebody like that who said, I haven't failed. I've just learned new ways how not to do things. So
that was Edison.
Edison, sorry, yeah,
exactly. When he was talking about
light bulb.
When a reporter supposedly came up to him and asked, "Well, how did you feel about failing 10,000 times at making a light bulb?" And he said, "I didn't fail at 10,000. I didn't fail. I just learned 10,000 different ways how not to make a light bulb."
Exactly.
So okay, so you got hit with the body blow of you've got cancer, and you went through, you did all the stuff that was needed, and you got it beat back, and you thought you were in remission, or you were in remission for I don't know, I mean, for a few years, weren't you?
Well, I was the almost 5 years that I was on interferon, the disease had not come back. So from that perspective, from the cancer perspective, yes, I didn't have cancer. From this horrible drug that gave me the flu every week, yeah, I was still fighting a battle, kind of on a different front, so to speak.
Right. So what type of, what was keeping you going with the fact that you were having a 5-year flu?
I'd say two things. Well, I'd say three things, and I call them the 3 F's. My faith, my family, and my friends. And I've always had a deep belief in God. And in a way, I know I'm coming to the end of my life, and that really doesn't scare me. In a way, I'm kind of excited to see what's on the other side of this life. And I know that sounds weird, and I know a lot of people have kind of like, oh, well, that scares me. But I always tell people, I've been asked, how can I have that attitude? And the reason I have that attitude is because I've lived my life. I've found my purpose, and I've lived that purpose. And if you can do that, and I always give this quote from Mark Twain, who said that the 2 most important days of our lives are the day we're born and the day we figure out why. And I've really kind of have a passion now with whatever time I have left to help people find and live that purpose. So I've been very fortunate. I have a great family. It's not a big family. My wife and daughter, my immediate family. I have 2 brothers, as I've mentioned. I'm 6'8". I've got the brother who coached Michael Jordan's son, 6'7", who pitched for Notre Dame, and then my middle brother is 6'6" and was drafted by the Cleveland Cavaliers back in 1983. And then my dad was 6'5". So if you sat behind our family in church growing up, there wasn't a prayer's chance you were going to see anything that was going on at all. And so I've been very fortunate that I have a strong faith. My family has been there for me from the beginning. My wife and I made a decision early on when I got cancer. I was 51 years old. Our daughter was in high school. We made a decision we were going to tell her the truth. Obviously, age appropriate for the truth, but we were going to tell her the truth. We're never going to lie to her and say, "Oh, Dad's great," when Dad wasn't great. And I think that was a good decision on our part, and I would do it that way. And then I have friends that that call me and just, hey, what's going on, and let's talk for a while and things like that. So I think if you can have those 3 F's in your life, then it's a lot easier to battle a disease or anything you're going through. Whether your marriage is falling apart or you lose your job, or you've got a child who's struggling in whatever situation in life they're struggling with. You've got to have people that are there for you. You've got to have something that I like to call that's bigger than yourself. That's actually one of the chapters one of the principles in my book, that to be part of something that's larger than yourself.
Right. Okay. So when it comes to finding your purpose, and that's actually kind of the angle from here I'd kind of like to dive into, is so many people seem to walk through life just floating through life, and they sense that they're losing stuff, they're leaving stuff behind, they're missing stuff as they go. and they really don't realize how far away they are and how far off course they've gotten until they start to review their life. Which when you're faced with cancer, seems that's what a lot of people do. They start to review their life and go, "Oh wow, didn't do as much as I was really wanting to by this time." What do you? How do you see people? How do they find their purpose?
So I think the first thing that you have to have, or you have to do to find your purpose, is you have to be open to it. And I know that sounds kind of corny. It's like, well, of course you do. Well, but as you said, there are a lot of people that are just walking around. I call them dead. We all know people that are dead. They just haven't fallen over yet. They're just marking time, and they're doing the same thing day in and day out. And when I talk to groups, I ask people this question. It's like, do you have any idea why you were put on this earth? And sometimes I'll take that a step further and ask them, do you know why you were born at this time? Why weren't you born 4,000 years ago or 25,000 years in the future? There's a reason that we were all born. And that reason involves finding and living our purpose. I believe we're all destined to live uncommon and extraordinary lives. And that has absolutely nothing to do with what kind of job we have, how much money we make, what kind of car we drive, where we live, etc. We are not all born with the same gifts and talents, but we all have the ability to become the best person that we're capable of becoming. The problem is that most people take an unintentional approach to living, and by living a casual life, their dreams, their goals, their ambitions become a casualty of that unplanned living. And during the almost 9 years now that I've been battling cancer, I've had plenty of time to think about my own death. And after I die, I can't imagine standing in the presence of our Creator, whoever or whatever you believe that entity to be, and being unable to account for the gifts and the talents that I was born with and that I didn't use to make the world a better place. And I always ask people, I believe, and if maybe you believe this, or if you can just think about this, that me as a human being, me as a person, is so unique that there's never been another human being before me like me, and there'll never be another human being after me that's like me. I am that unique as a human being. And if we're all that unique, and I believe we are, why wouldn't you want to use your unique gifts and talents to find your purpose, to make this world a better place, whatever it is? I mean, if you never take a chance on your dreams, if you never take the time to figure out who you are, why you're here, and what you're supposed to do, as you say, when you come to the end of your life, you start looking back on that and you say, I never did anything. There's a Native American Blackfoot proverb that I heard years ago that I love, and it goes like this: when you were born, you cried and the world rejoiced. Live your life in such a way so that when you die, the world cries and you rejoice. The only way to find your purpose is to search it out, to try things that make you uncomfortable, to fight against the status quo, to frankly experience things that scare you. If you're doing the same thing every day, you're never going to grow. You have to get out of that comfort zone. You have to do things that scare you. And I have been scared so many times, whether it's, playing basketball. I don't know if I can do this. These guys are older than me. Or whether it's cancer. And, is this going to be it? But you take that fear and you pull it inside you. And you're like, you know what? Now it's energy for me. And I can use that, and I can make me a stronger and more determined individual.
Wow. That's wow. That's incredible. You kind of left me speechless on that one. That was so many amazing things that were mentioned in there. Big one being that you have to be actually uncomfortable. Yeah, because that's one thing that I like to try to point to men so much is, it sounds horrible to be uncomfortable, but uncomfortable, you could actually start being uncomfortable by just taking a 5-minute cold shower once, twice, 3 times a week. At the end of your shower, or even before you actually start bathing, you can, just turn it on to cold, get underneath there, and just suffer through it for, bring your phone in there and say, hey, Siri, bring in, or hey, Shlomo, whatever form of assistant you have on your phone. Say, hey, set timer for 5 minutes and then just step in. Yeah, because you're going to instantly, it's going to take your breath away. You're going to want to fight against it. But what happens after that, as you experience that cold, you all of a sudden find a place in your mind that you're able to kind of look to, and you see it. And I'm not going to call it your purpose. I'm not even going to call it a will, but it's just a spot in your mind where you can realize, I can tough through this. This is not as anguishing as it first seemed. And there's so much that men can actually become and realize about themselves if they do actually take the time to just get a little bit uncomfortable. I'm not saying go out and, lay on a bed of nails or anything, but, or even, don't even have to try to run a marathon, though running a marathon would, surprise the heck out of you. So many people who were, 300 pounds at one time, for being, they might have been like 5'8", 5'10", and weighing 300 pounds. And within a couple of years, they're running a marathon because they decided to take that chance to get uncomfortable. Yeah, your knees are going to hurt. Your ankles are going to hurt. You're going to get blisters on your feet. You're going to figure out. But as you get those blisters, you're going to figure out, holy smokes, if I get these other running socks, yeah, they cost $50 a pair, but I put these socks on and my feet don't hurt near as bad. You get to learn that, hey, these shoes were really good. They were recommended, but this cheaper pair of New Balances feel great on my feet as I run. You don't have to follow what everybody says. It's a means of you exploring and discovering what works for you. And as you go about on doing that, you become smarter. Everybody wants to know, how do you build confidence? Well, you build confidence by just doing.
You do. And it's funny because I think you hit the nail right on the head with what you've been saying. And there's a huge impediment. You think, well, why isn't everybody out there living their purpose? And I always say, well, there's a huge impediment to finding and living your purpose. And that impediment or that obstacle is us. Because we all know, our brains are hardwired to avoid pain and discomfort and to seek pleasure. To our minds, the status quo is comfortable and familiar and should be left alone. And if you think about it, like let's say somebody who's looking for a new job. We all know people who are stuck in dead-end positions, and these people should have been working somewhere else years ago. But for some reason, they stay put. Why is that? I'd suggest it's because every time they decide to find new employment, their brain kicks in and starts pointing out all the reasons that they should stay put. Things like, hey, you're making good money and you're accustomed to the routines here and the work is easy. And you know what? You go somewhere else, you might not get along with coworkers at a new company. Whatever the reason, to the brain, a new job presents all types of uncertainty and uncomfortableness. If you're in a job that you can't stand, and it would make sense for you to explore new opportunities, your brain is going to fight you on making that change. And I think this next line is really important. The problem with most people is they think with their fears and their insecurities instead of using their minds. Let me say that one more time, because I really think this is hugely important. The problem with most people is they think with their fears and their insecurities instead of using their minds. We don't like to live in an uncomfortable state, but that's the only place where real growth can occur. When I was coaching high school basketball, I used to constantly remind my players that they needed to become comfortable with being uncomfortable. As such, I'd move players in and out of drills and practice that I knew caused them anxiety. I wanted them to be uneasy, not because I was trying to get them to fail, just the opposite. I wanted them to realize that they could succeed at something that made them apprehensive. The only way we can grow, the only way we can push past our comfort zones is to do what we find unpleasant and undesirable. And it's in those painful, difficult, and sometimes embarrassing moments that real growth can occur. And I'm gonna really date myself now. I know I did it a little while ago, but in 1976, the U.S. gold medal winning Olympic swimmer Shirley Babashoff had one of the greatest quotes that I've ever heard. And this is what she said. She said, "Winners think about what they want to happen, and losers think about what they don't want to happen. Winners can override their brains and focus on the things they want to occur. And losers focus on the negative aspects of competition and aren't able to see the positive qualities of pursuing a goal or a dream."
Wow. Oh, yeah. And I can't remember who exactly said it, but there was a gentleman who had made the statement that, and I've started using it as a bearing on what I do. But he says, use fear as a compass. Or let's see, no, how to actually phrase it. Except in the time of mortal danger, use fear as a compass, because that's where your largest amount of growth comes from. And it's been pretty good so far. I mean, I'm personally having to step over into some discomfort areas, just because that's I'll look at it, and the place that all of a sudden I start getting a whole bunch of brain chatter where it's like, well, let's try writing a book. All of a sudden, it's like, dude, you write blogs. You do good whenever you make a 1,500 word blog. You're not a writer. You start hearing all these little reasons as to why being a writer or doing something different start rattling off in your brain, and that is fear talking. And so the more I hear that, and the more rapid those excuses click off in my mind, I almost use that as a Geiger counter. If I start going and I get more and more, and then I start fading off, it's like, okay, well, I know what direction I need to go to. Do I need to write a large book or a small book? Well, right now it seems like about a medium-sized book is probably about the size that I really need. I don't need to write an epic tale of adventure, and it's more of an epic tale of self-discovery. It's those are the types of things that are really, that's how I've started navigating life, is going through there and seeing where's this fear Geiger counter thing clicking off the most, and that's the direction I probably need to be heading for most of all. And you can look at that as a couple different ways. That's, some people would say that's the enemy of yourself telling you to stay away from that area, because that's where you're going to be the greatest. So
yeah, it is. And the kind of line I like to use is to become successful, your purpose has to be bigger than your pain. And that's kind of what you're saying. I've got to push past that fear. And if I do that, then I'll find my purpose. I'll find a direction that I'll be happy in, that I'll be fulfilled in.
Precisely. So we've kind of hinted around on the book. What is the name of your book?
The book is called Sustainable Excellence, the 10 Principles to Leading Your Common and an Extraordinary Life.
All right. And what is your book actually mainly covering? What are your the 6 principles, kind of in a nutshell?
So the 10 principles, really, this book was kind of, that's okay. This was a book kind of born out of 2 conversations I had. One with a former player, a point guard I had on my team who went to the University of Georgia. She and her boyfriend have moved here to the Colorado, to the Denver area. And I sent her a text one day, and my wife and I have had dinner with her and her boyfriend several times. And I'm like, I'm really excited to have you here in Denver, where I can watch you find and live your purpose. And she kind of came back to me with, well, what do you think my purpose is? And, I gave her the quote that I just said about Mark Twain. And I said, I don't know what your purpose is. That's something you're going to have to figure out. But keep in mind, some people know their purpose right out of the gate. You know what? I'm going to be a doctor. I'm going to be a lawyer. I'm going to be whatever I'm going to be. And then some people, it takes a lifetime to find that purpose. And I gave her the example of Colonel Sanders, who started Kentucky Fried Chicken. He started Kentucky Fried Chicken after he retired. He was in his 60s when he started that company. Now, I don't know if that was his purpose, but I have a pretty good idea that it might have been. And can you imagine if he would have said, in his 30s or his 40s, I'm just going to find some job and, whatever. And so it was that conversation. Then I had a young man from the Citadel, basketball player, who connected with me on LinkedIn, who asked me this question. He said, what are the things that I need to learn to not only be successful in my job, but also in life? And I talked to him a little bit about, I'm writing a second book now that is going to focus more on significance instead of success. And I said, success for all of us is, we were successful at starting a company or raising a family or whatever, but it was something we did. Significance is more focused on what you did to help other people. And I like to, I think you can be both. You can be successful and you can be significant, but I think it's more important to be significant. So I had these two conversations, and literally I wrote this book from the time that I had my leg amputated, which is April 21st of this year, till the time I started chemotherapy, which was about mid-June. And like you, I was not a writer. I had written things before, but I'd never written a book. And I always kind of feel like, yeah, I wrote the book, but in my mind, that book was inspired or, in all honesty, written by God. I think God was like, hey, this is important stuff, and I need you to get this down and get it out. And so that's kind of what I did. And it's just 10 principles. And I came up with these 10 principles, and I started thinking, I've got a life story about that, or I know somebody who has a life story about that, or I read a story about that. And eventually I had enough material that I put a book together. And it's, the principles are in no particular order, but, I talk about the first one is enjoy your life. Don't find a job, find your purpose, find your why, and you'll work a whole lot harder, but you'll be a whole lot happier. And, we talked about, people thinking with their fears and their insecurities. And, we were born to lead an uncommon and extraordinary life. Always remain curious. And I like this one especially. You are the person that you're looking to become. So if you want to be whatever it is you want to be, but I'm not that. I haven't done that yet. That's right. You haven't done it yet, but you're the person that you're looking to become. You want to be that. So you really are that person. You just got to take the steps to get you there. And so I go on with some other ones. And really the one I end with, and I think is the most important thing, is love. Love is the most important thing that any of us have. Love for each other, love for ourselves. And I was a big fan of John Wooden, who was a basketball coach at UCLA when I was growing up. He was kind of the Coach K of his time. And his teams won 7 national championships in a row. And I remember hearing an interview with him, and he talked about the things that were important in life. And a reporter asked him, what is the most important thing in life? And here's this incredibly successful coach, and he boiled the most important things in life down to one word, and that word was love.
Love. Wow. Wow. Yeah. It does. Love covers so much ground, and it's something that so many of us just struggle with.
We do.
I mean, it's from men just being able to tell other men they love them. I mean,
Yep.
it's not a macho thing. It's just, it's not something that we are actually taught. But we as men all need to have a band of brothers, and that I try to make it a point whenever I get finished talking, because right now I have 2 very close friends, and when I finished talking to them, I try to make sure that every time I end the call with, "Love you, brother. and go with that. And that's something tough just to do. And it's not in a weird way or anything. It's just you love them for being the human, for being who they are, and love them for the spirit that's inside of them. And we do need to have more love and listen to people and approach people. And so many people want to be angry at another person. And even with when relationships fall apart, you can still love a person. If you have an ex who, may have treated you badly and has found another man, and it seems like you just hear that they're getting married. You have a choice, and you can choose to actually go ahead and love your ex and wish them the world. Yeah, she may have been cheating on you left, right, and center the whole time y'all were together. But you have the choice. You can go ahead and say, "God bless you. I love you. I hope you found your happiness finally." And that would change the attitude of so many people by just being able to sit down and actually choose love, choose above all else, because you have that choice. The emotions you feel are just that. So you're not throwing love you're not making that person feel love. Well, the only benefit you're getting out of going ahead and choosing to love is that you get to be the one who feels that love. That is your love. That is you that is feeling that emotion. However love feels in you, it might be kind of this light, airy, tingly sensation, or it may be, a more of a sensation in the back of your head. Wherever you feel that emotion, I've not ever known anybody who says love is painful.
No,
and
no,
so
it's not. And it's funny when I talk to groups, I usually end it and I ask them to do me this one favor. For the next 30 days, look at everybody that you come in contact with as if they'll be dead tomorrow. So look at the person who cuts you off in traffic, or the person at work who takes credit for something you did, or your 16-year-old who's constantly defying you as if they'll be dead tomorrow. And if you do that, it's amazing how much less stress that you'll have in your life, and how you will look at people much more positively and much more caringly than you did before that.
Wow, that is definitely a way to just completely snap that mindset around, to be how to look at them. If you want to, look at them as if they die. What happened? How would you act if they died tomorrow? How would you look at them? That's wow. That's good. Just to because so many people get stuck in just their own heads, and to be able to just look at it and go, what if they had died tomorrow? What if whether it's their fault or not, you have just a very temporary sensation of somebody cutting you off. Yeah, you're angry. You had to slam on the brakes. You almost hit them or whatever. But you could look at them in such a more caring, understanding fashion. And if you were to look at them as, well, what happened if they were to die tomorrow? I don't know very many people who would celebrate and actually honestly celebrate the passing of someone. You hear a lot of people make some very cold remarks through social media, but if that was to actually happen, I doubt that most people would actually go through and would be celebratory. They wouldn't be jumping up and down, dancing in the streets over the death of, even if it was the scary orange guy that's in office right now. They would state it. They would state it in a very cold-hearted manner, but I don't think they would. The vast majority of people would not. So,
right.
So let's go ahead and let's start wrapping her up. Your book can be found on Amazon, right?
It can be found on Amazon. It can be found on BarnesandNoble.com. It can be found on iBooks. Pretty much any source that's out there that distributes books, you can find it.
Okay. Is there going to be an audiobook available at any time?
Actually, my publisher and I have just been talking about that this past week.
Oh.
So we're coming to that conclusion, and it's funny because he told me I've learned so much about the publishing business that I had no idea. But he told me that the vast majority of men buy audiobooks as opposed to women who will buy a hard copy type of book and that. So I didn't know that.
Yeah, well, I would have to say that probably absolutely right, because my wife, she reads. Of course, she's not much of a nonfiction reader, but all the books she reads are either Kindle or through or actual hard copies of books. And me, I've gone through so many books this year just because of my Audible subscription. And
Sure.
so, yeah, I would have to say, yeah, I listen. Of course, I'm driving for my day job, so
Right.
that's the easiest time for me to listen. And I'll listen to a book a couple times, because I know that there's a lot of times that I'll be more paying attention more to traffic, so I'll miss something in there. And so every time I reread a book, there's a new discovery that I make in there. But awesome, I'll be glad to hear that. And your website is what?
It's motivationalcheck.com, all one word, and motivationalcheck@AOL.com if you want to send me an email. And then I.
Wow,
if
you still have an AOL account?
I do. That shows you how old I am, But yeah, I do. So but if you go to motivationalcheck.com, you can send me a note through that, and I also have my social media sites attached to that: Twitter and Facebook and LinkedIn.
Okay, awesome. And so at Motivational Check, it shows that you've got podcasts. I guess these are all the podcasts that you've been on?
Yes, that I've been on. I don't have a podcast that I do myself. I'm pretty busy with the ones that I've been on as guests. So
there's nothing wrong with that. Being able to be a helpful content generator for other folks is just as valuable as having your own. So you're still getting your word out, and good job.
Thank you
for that. So, all right. Any other last words that you would like to make before we close this up?
Let me leave you with this one story, and I think this is kind of powerful. And I've always been a big fan of Westerns growing up. When I was young, my mom and dad used to let me stay up and watch Gunsmoke or Maverick, or my favorite was Wild Wild West. But in 1993, the movie Tombstone came out, and it starred Val Kilmer as Doc Holliday and Wyatt Earp Kurt Russell as Wyatt Earp. And Doc Holliday and Wyatt Earp were actually two living, breathing human beings that walked on the face of the earth. They're not characters that were made up specifically for the movie. And Doc was a dentist by trade, but pretty much was a gunslinger and a card shark. And Wyatt, for most of his life, had been a lawman. Well, at the very end of the movie, the two men are actually, Doc is dying in a sanitarium in Glenwood Springs, Colorado. And the real Doc Holliday did die in that sanitarium, and he's buried in the Glenwood Springs cemetery. And at this point in his life, Wyatt is destitute. He has no money, he has no job, and he has no prospects for a job. So every day he comes to visit with Doc, and they play cards just to pass the time. And so the two men are talking about what they want out of life. And Doc says, I was in love with my cousin when I was younger, and she ended up joining a convent over the affair, but she was all that I ever wanted. And he looks at Wyatt and he said, what about you, Wyatt? What do you want? And Wyatt says, I just want to lead a normal life. And Doc looks at him and says, there's no normal, there's just life, and get on with living yours. So, from my perspective, would I like to not have cancer? You bet I would. I wish I had never gone down this road, but I did go down this road. I had no choice to go down this road. These are the cards that I've been dealt, and I have to play them. I believe we're all born to live an uncommon and extraordinary life, but to do that, we need to control our minds. We need to embrace the pain and the suffering in our life and use that to make us stronger and more determined. And that as long as you keep moving forward and remind yourself that as long as you don't quit, you can never be defeated. I remember Stuart Scott, the former ESPN reporter who died a few years ago of cancer, said, "Don't downgrade your dreams to fit your reality. Upgrade your convictions to match your destiny." So
Wow.
if I can leave people with that and in the hope that for the next 30 days, they'll treat everybody they come in contact with as if they'll be dead tomorrow, then hopefully I've left something positive with your audience.
I think you have. I'm going to be staying in touch with you because
Thank you.
if there's anything, you are just a powerhouse of inspiration. You are just amazing. And so, Terry, I appreciate the time that you've been able to spend here with us. This has just been a powerhouse discussion of just what we can do to get ourselves out, find our purpose, going ahead and embrace that discomfort that holds you back, because that discomfort and the fear of that discomfort is merely just a veil for something that is incredible on the other side. And if you can push through that veil, it's the rewards are indescribable. And I think you have shown that and proven that, and being an incredible teacher like that is something this world needs. And I'm going to hope that a miracle comes along, and all of a sudden you're still hanging around for another 20 years. So I think that would be an incredible thing to happen. And I'm going to be praying for you and your family so that we can see if we can talk God into letting you hang around just a little bit longer.
Thank you. I'm hoping that happens too. Believe me, I pray for that every day.
So, but anyhow, I thank you again for everything, guys. Go check out Terry's stuff. Go buy that book. I have yet to actually get a chance to read it, but know that's on my to purchase list, and I'll be getting my copy in, and that'll definitely be a book that I read while I go through start trying to do the 75 hard here in the very near future. So, guys, thank y'all again for listening. I hope y'all have an incredible rest of the week, and we will see you next week with episode number 51. Until then, guys, stay safe, love your brothers, and we'll talk to you then.